everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net and scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal podcast. Hope you guys are doing great and having a wonderful time doing whatever it is you're doing. We've got a phenomenal show lined up for you guys today. I am joined by David Jon, founder of SEPI Agency, SEPI, and that stands for Supernatural, Extraterrestrial, and Paranormal Investigation Agency out of the UK. And he has also brought along Allison Paveling, who is one of his co-investigators, and we are going to take a journey into their world and talk about all of their experiences, as well as the incredibly comprehensive research and work that they're doing. So buckle up, folks. We're going in. Hey, David and Allison, welcome to the show. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've just been introduced to your show recently, obviously, since we've been corresponding, but I gotta tell you, I am absolutely thrilled with what you're doing. I am a brand new fan of yours. I've watched a few of your videos, and they are incredibly well done, incredibly comprehensive, and they really inspire critical thinking, which I think has been a deficit for quite a while in the paranormal communities, just to actively evaluate evidence, not just on face value, but digging into what are we seeing and is this truly representing the phenomena? So first and foremost, my hat's off to you guys. I just love what you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, because it's quite a lot of work that goes into what we do. Just a bit of background. SEPI has been formed really out of frustration, I'd say, with the quality, I think, of some very well-meaning groups, amateur groups that go out there and they turn up to a haunting, or they're taking pictures of lights in the sky, and then they get all excited and they keep that data to themselves and they don't share it. They might do a video, they might do a book, they might do a few meetings about it, but then it all just dies. And then if you're lucky, you might get a hit on TikTok or Instagram or some YouTube video about the subject, and then it just takes the next 20, 30 years to get anywhere. And that's because it is full of holes anyway. Just think of your bucket full of loads of holes in it. You're trying to keep that water of information. It's never going to go anywhere but the floor.
Right.
So, because of my policing background, I decided to really use that experience in policing to bring it into this arena, which for some is uncomfortable, and for others it's exciting. And for most people it's different, a very different take. So for example, if we get a call about a haunting, we don't just turn up on a whim with a psychic medium immediately and say, well, let's start talking to the dead and doing all this sort of stuff. We don't do that. It's just like a police incident. It's treated the same way. You get a reference number. We will give you a call for sort of a first account with you, which is akin to a statement. We will do that with you, and then we will do a risk assessment internally. Alison and I and the others will have a sort of a chinwag about what we're going to do with it next, and if we feel it's got any value in it. And when I say value, I'm meaning, has it got any red flags flying away? Because there are lots of those I've had to reject, unfortunately, because of early red flags. And then we decide, okay, this is what we're going to do next then. We communicate that to the informant, the person that reports the incident to us or the case to us. And we treat, and everything's documented into an inch of its life, really. So the moment they contact us via email or phone call, that's on a system. We've got a system built. It's a web database It's called Storm. It's our system. Everything's logged on there. Every comment, every image, every document, it's all uploaded to it. And all my officers have got access to it. So whenever they add a comment, it's clearly tagged them as the commenter and what the document is. So we are trying to do it in a professional manner, so we can have real good, clean evidence of real things happening. So if the SEPI agency ever can't say to anybody, we've got a case of a UFO sighting, which is a C3 or C4 event, or even a C5 event, we'll come to that. You'll know that we've already gone through the due diligence to an inch of its life already. And we've checked everybody out, we've checked the circumstances, we've checked air traffic, we've checked every piece of data we can lay our hands on before we'd say this is, in our opinion, unexplained and real. So you'll know that. We don't just go, yeah, we think that's UFO, bye, and shut the door.
And I think it's really important to say, David, that you've trained us all in sort of taking police statements, witness statements. So we're all working along with, in exactly the same way. So there's no indiscretions. And I'd also like to add that it's a really ethical based way of working. We work very ethically. We all have our police enhancement checks, and we look out for people's mental health and vulnerability as well. So I think that's really important to say that at that point.
Yeah, that is a really good point, mate. Because so every officer is DBS check, which is a UK police check, basically, and everybody joins. But we have two types of members within the agency. We have SEPI officers, which is what I and Allison are, and we have SEPI researchers. So they are people that don't have DBS checks because there's no requirement to, but they will go and do research for us and gather information. So they will go and do all that groundwork for us. The difference between the two is that they're not trained to do taking the statements or gathering evidence or doing interviews, because I also train, as Allison knows, how long did that take? 4 or 5 hour day, wasn't it? Doing the interview training.
Yeah, the training. Yeah.
It's quite a robust package, but it's necessary. So the researchers don't have to go through all that, because they're not actually ever able to own a case on their own, and they can't turn up to somebody's address on their own either, because they're not DBS checked. So we have all that framework, as Allison said, that ethical framework behind us to help protect the informants and to protect us, because people can say silly things.
I think that's amazing, and it's so important, I think, because every factor is important in an investigation. Every factor, including who's investigating, who's looking into this, and any agendas they may or may not have, and how do they remain objective, and how are they evaluating what they're being told or what they're observing, and the ability to look behind the curtain a little bit, and I think that's really well done, and I applaud that as well, because I think. And I'm not casting any aspersions at anybody. I mean, I love that people are interested in the topic and they're going out there looking for answers. But I think that it is important that there is. When I was learning paranormal investigating, I worked with a guy, and he said the most important tool you're going to have in a paranormal investigation is a notepad and a pencil. And I was like, wow, I'm thinking EMF detectors or, Ovilus or REM pods or something, or, night vision. He's like, no, you got to document. You got to take notes. What's going on? Where, and it's like, wow, yeah, that is kind of the important part, because after the fact, if you don't have that kind of information, it's just a personal experience that you're trying to substantiate. But when you have environmental factors, when you have, this is what's going on, or, stamps for any outside distractions that might be, influencing the investigations, I think that's amazing. What you guys are doing is so well done. And it's reminiscent of what I think, and I haven't had any direct interaction with them, but what MUFON, I think, is pretty well organized as well. But before we dive more into that, I gotta ask you guys, how did you get here into the paranormal? Because it's such everybody's got their transformative moment or at least, lifelong interest. So starting with you, David, how did you get into this?
I always say that no one gets into this; it kind of gets into you. Something happens to somebody at some point in their life that makes them go, "Well, that's not normal." So my journey would have started before I could even walk. I had I could go on all night about it, but I'll try and keep it really brief. But as a baby, I saw myself from above. I was left on a precarious situation on a leather chair that had no size to it as a young baby, probably 3 months old. I'm guessing that, but probably. But I saw myself from above. And not only did I see myself, but I also spoke to myself in a common tongue. And I said, "Don't worry, just keep still, you'll be fine." And I still remember it. I'm 54 years old. I still remember it very vividly. Wow. And not only do I remember it, when I spoke to my mother about this a few years ago, I actually explained to her the layout of the room I was in, because it happens to be my grandmother's room. And she said, "Oh my God, how do you remember that?" I described the room exactly as it was. Mm-hmm. So that was real. And around about 6 or 7 years old, I had a weird experience. Went to bed. My dad would put me to bed as usual, shut the door, keep the hallway light on for me, because I was always a little bit worried about the dark, as kids are. And I could see a shadow of his feet beneath the door, or the beam of light through the door. And he always did this. He probably always did it. Stayed there for about a couple of minutes before going downstairs. But this particular night, he sat there. So he stood there and he stood there. He seemed to stand there for a long, long time, to the point I was thinking, I can't go to sleep, because why is Dad standing outside the door? So I got brave in the end, and I actually went to open the door to see why he was there. Fully expecting him to beam down at me and go, "Get back to bed. What are you doing out of bed?" But he wasn't there. Okay, the shadows were there the moment until I opened the door. They were gone. Wow. So that wasn't the weird thing. The weird thing then was realising it was very late at night, because there was no telly on downstairs. There's a very small house we lived in. It only had one living room downstairs and a kitchen and a hallway. And upstairs had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom and a little hallway. That was all it was. Very small. But I realised that downstairs was complete darkness, so my parents must have been in bed. Their door was shut. The air was full of static electricity. I could feel the hairs on my arms, back of my neck, standing on end. I could smell smell and taste something in the air. And then something was propelling me to walk out across the stairs, not down them, but outwards. I.e., if you take a step like that, you're going to fall and tumble. But something kept saying, just step out, you'll be fine. I stepped out, and I didn't fall. I stepped again, I still didn't fall. I stepped again, I didn't fall. And by the time I looked down, I realised I'm about 4 stairs above the stairs.
Whoa.
And now I'm being pulled towards the wall, which, as you can imagine, is sloping downward because it's stairway. And it's getting closer to me and closer to me and closer to me, until the point I had to turn my head to the side, thinking, my nose is going to touch the wall. And as I did that, I saw inside the wall, I saw wooden slats behind the plasterboard. I smelt a very weird smell, and then that was it. Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. I can't remember anything else. But that never left me. Now, the smell in the wall, I realised when I was about 20 odd years old, working on the building site, I was hacking a wall down with a sledgehammer. That smell was actually the horrible musty dust smell from old walls, that horrible, it would get right in your nostrils. It's that smell. And the other smell in the hallway, before I started levitating really towards the wall, I've only recently realised, literally a few years ago, what that is ionised air.
Oh.
And I know that because my wife bought me one of those plasma orbs for birthday as a joke. Because I said, I wanted one, never had one. So I played with it for about 10 minutes and realised that there's that sort of disinfectant type smell in the air. Mm-hmm. And it's ionised air. And then suddenly I was like, that's what it was.
Oh,
you know.
neat.
So, 50 odd years later, I realised what the other smell was. But, yeah, there's loads more, but I'm sure Alison's got her own tale to tell.
Oh, I mean, my route is I've always been interested in things that you can't explain. I think that my brother and I had a couple of experiences in one of my parents' house. A number of years ago, we both used to see it was like a hooded man, like a monk, walking down the stairs. But it wasn't just us that saw that. It was we used to have a hairdresser come to the house, and her young boy kept pointing at the stairs and saying, why is the man with the hood walking up and down the stairs? So we knew it wasn't just us. And I think from my perspective, growing up in the 70s, over in England, there were only 3 channels, and BBC Two started at 6 o'clock, and there were lots of UFO, films and things on, and series, and that sparked my interest. And I spent a lot of my teenage years driving out late at night to places like a place called Wallasey Island, Foulness Island, to see if I could spot my own UFOs. But really, my interest in different phenomenon and different people's belief structures started when I was at university. My degree was in contemporary art practice, and my dissertation was the role of the photographic image within human belief. And I just travelled around interviewing lots of people about their different belief systems. So I met people in UFO groups. I met people who communicated with stars. I met people who were into like pagan religions. I met people who were psychic, and they all had different belief structures. And I went and interviewed Catholic priests, and I just gathered everyone's different opinions about things. And as I've got older, I've just looked more and more into, I found my own way with those things. So really, really into Bigfoot, and whether Bigfoot exists in the UK, because there's not so much documented about that. Particularly where we are, I've been really interested in a story about the werewolf of Southend. That was well documented, wasn't it, David, in the 80s? And I think this has just sparked my interest. There are lots of people with lots of different beliefs, and whether that's based in evidence or whether that's based within them, a true belief. And it's about finding out the difference between what people want to believe and what the evidence that's actually there for it. And I have my own views and opinions about things, but I try and keep very, sort of level, and I try and keep open-minded, but I do try and base my research in facts. So that's where I've come from. And meeting David at a UFO group, he spoke about the SEPI agency. And I got really excited, and I just approached him at this UFO group and said, I'd really like to become a SEPI agent and a SEPI officer. And he said, oh, well, I have to, do a bit of background on you and do some checks, because this has got to be taken really seriously. So I said to him, well, I'm a deputy head teacher of a school. I do take things seriously. And we got chatting, and I had a sort of informal interview, and that's where I'm here. But in my life, I've had lots of different experiences, whether they're real or not, whether they're based in evidence. It's about proving things, really, because I think people will be more willing to believe you if you've got the evidence to back up your stories and your experiences. So, yeah.
No, that's fantastic, and I thank you guys for sharing that, because I think we all have a journey. We all got here somehow, but again, the work you guys are doing is incredibly inspiring to me, because I think there's a huge deficit of that really in-depth critical thinking. Because I think you guys probably share the same opinion, but I think we want the needle to move forward, and it can't happen if there's no metrics to measure this stuff by. I mean, there's nothing to substantiate the actual, true events versus the fabrications or the hoaxes or the embellishments or the exaggerations. And so I think it's fantastic that you guys have such a comprehensive methodology in place to investigate these things. Also, your your group is also referred to as the Paranormal Police. So how did that happen?
Yeah, that was Alison just mentioned she met me at a local UFO group. So I was there one evening just to try and really get a gauge of what this group's about and the types of people that were there. I was quite shocked by the demographic, actually. It was a lot older people than I thought. I actually thought I'd turned up to the wrong meeting and thought it was like a religious study. I thought, oh, God, I've got to turn up the wrong night. But it wasn't. And they're all very lovely people. But the founder of that group, the guys that run it, they called it Essex UFO and Paranormal Group. So shout out to those. So it's David Hobbs and Sue Lee, who just got very interested in my concept of the SEPI agency. So he asked me, do you mind doing a talk one evening? You know, just what you're about. We're very interested. And if we get any investigations, we'd like to throw in your direction rather than deal with it themselves. So I said, yeah, fine. So I did the talk. And I don't know if it's the same night that Allison was there or not. I don't know. But
it was, David. It was the same night.
Okay. So you were there. But this little fellow come up to me during the break and he said, are you that I'll do his accent because it was just funny. Because are you that paranormal police bloke? I went, paranormal police? I went, I like that.
It's pretty cool.
I said to him, well, kind of, yeah, I suppose, because here in the UK, I'm serving police officer as well. I don't know if it's the same in America, but we have police officers that are full-time, that's their day job, and other police officers with the same powers and everything else do it voluntary, and I do that voluntary. So I did 10.5 years, and I was also an NCA officer for 4.5 years. That was my full-time job, the National Crime Agency. So yeah, that's because I'd mentioned the policing. You just kind of put the two together. So when you went away, I was like, I kind of like paranormal police. I think it can be used as a softer, more of a marketing tool, and more. It would look good on a T-shirt, for example. Rather than SEPI agency, people go, "What's that?" You know, it doesn't. SEPI agency is the meaning is built in the wording, but it's not. You don't see it immediately, know what that is.
Right.
So I've done a little bit of research on marketing and things like this because you kind of have to.
Sure.
In this arena, you do. Unfortunately, you do.
Yeah.
And I hate social media sometimes, but I've had to be dragged back into it. And yeah, so I'm using the Paranormal Police as our pseudo name and our sort of marketing thing. And what we're going to be doing, Alison and I was speaking about doing our own podcast thing eventually, aren't we? And that will be called the Paranormal Police Case Files. So
cool.
It'll be centered around actual cases rather than SEPI agency podcasts. So it'd be more. It does what it says on the packet. We're paranormal police. We're investigating paranormal cases in a policing style and a policing methodology. So yeah, that's where it came from. So I don't know who that little fellow was. I don't know his name, but I kind of thank him for that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And it's a great misnomer. You're right, or a great identifier. Shouldn't say misnomer. But so I was watching your video about the Jerusalem UFO incident, and I gotta tell you, I was absolutely blown away. And again, I'm not just blowing smoke here, and I'm not just trying to appease your ego, but I was so excited to watch that video because I watch a lot of this stuff every chance I get from different sources just to see what people are doing, what are people substantiating or trying to substantiate, and what's going on. And I was just so impressed with the amount of comprehensive information you had compiled, and down to the monk. Does his story match what the claim is, and then the examination of the video evidences themselves. I was just so blown away and thrilled to see it. So what can you say about that case specifically?
So that for me was sad.
Yeah.
I've always known about that Jerusalem UFO event, which happened in January 28, 2011. It happened. I've always known about it for many years. I've seen the footage of the glowing orb coming down over the rock, the dome of the rock, flashing twice and then taking off at tremendous speed. Fascinated me, and I always thought to myself, do you know what? That's a sacred site for most religions.
Yeah.
And if this is real, that's profound. You know, we need to look at that. So it's always been in the back of my head to really delve into that at another time. So I've been learning DaVinci Resolve, which is the editing software that I use to do my videos. So yeah, it's wonderful software. I bought the studio version in the end. So shout out to DaVinci Resolve. Thank you. Brilliant. But it's also good as an analytic tool because you can feed in the video and frame by frame by frame, you can blow it up, you can change the colorings. So it's a wonderful tool to really analyze video footage, which is, as you'll see from my video, that's what I've done. You see the screenshots from DaVinci and how I've laid that out. And it enabled me to also separate the audio from the video, because one of the bombshell claims that I make on the video, not claims, it's what the evidence is, that nobody's ever mentioned. They've never analysed the audio on those videos, and when you do, you realise that it is full of mistakes and things that don't line up. So that was when I said it was sad. It was sad because my belief system had to change because of the weight of evidence, and then we come to the persons of interest. So this is the bit people don't do. They do not dig into the people who post these things. That, you know, let's look into the background. What can we do on open source investigation techniques, which is using publicly available information on anybody. So I never use policing systems, by the way, to do anything on anybody, because I would immediately be sacked, lose my warrant card, and it'd be disgraced. I would never do that. It's illegal anyway. But there's people offer plenty of information themselves to the internet through social media. So knowing how to do that and then getting the information, you start building a picture. And as you will see from the video, which was supposed to be a 15-minute video, Brent, it really was. But the weight of the evidence, I just had to explain why it didn't work. And the more I explained it, the longer the video got to 47 minutes in the end. And I could have done a little bit more even, but I thought, no, I can't do any more. You know, there's enough. Right. There's enough evidence. So as you'll see from the video, I've critically measured the object. I worked out how big the object is supposed to be. I compared videos together. I done in-depth audio analysis, which you find as new evidence there. And then when the characters, I started looking at the person of interest and realised that one of them was in two places at the very exact time, 10 kilometres away from himself. That was another nugget of gold for me. You know, if it's almost like being when you're working for CID and you've got this bit of evidence that really does nail down your suspect. Like they've almost given you the evidence by accident, and you've got it, and you're like, you know, you've now just dug yourself a massive hole. That was the same moment for me when I found out he was in two places at once and the audio not matching. So yeah, it was disappointing. And I do say in the video that we are really disappointed because I wanted it to be real. I really did, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, but it was great because even the side by sides and you were able to drill into, look, frame by frame, you know, there's differences in the objects themselves and the number of objects in one case, and it's like, oh wow, very, very good. And I just thought it was great. You know, I've always thought that evidence should look like evidence, and that on first blush, that does look like evidence. It looks like a pretty impressive capture, but you're right. Once you drill into it, and you start doing the frame by frame analysis along with the sound analysis, which is, my hat's off to you. Again, brilliant. I just was really, really pleased with that. And it is disheartening because there is an epidemic of people doing just that, creating these sensational, videos that are doing pretty well for the creators, unfortunately. They're out there, they're getting, like I was telling you before the show, I just did one on a hanging vampire caught in a tree, and it had 2.2 million views. And it's like, in less than 30 seconds, I was able to go on Google and go, well, that's obviously the same thing. It's a prop. And it's unfortunate, but it is lucrative. So there is, there's a couple of sides to that, but I was so pleased to see that you're doing that. And, the field needs a lot more of this. It needs a lot more of this kind of scrutiny, unfortunately. Again, as I was saying before the show, I think we do have a confirmation bias, and we want this stuff to be real because we believe it's out there, not because we just want it to be real for real's sake, but as you both have articulated, you've had experiences, you've seen things, that this phenomena is happening, and it would be great if we could provide that kind of evidence for the world to show them, look, we're not crazy. There's wild stuff going on out here. But it was just so neat. But I also saw the video, and I don't mean to change gears, but I was really excited about this one too, was your expose on lens flares.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is absolutely epidemic in this field. Look at all the orbs. You got loved ones all around you.
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of photos sent of that nature, so I thought it was important. The Welsh orb investigation video was my second ever video I ever made, so I was real. You see the difference between that video and my latest video in the production of it. There's a massive gap.
Yeah.
Because I'm still learning, how to do stuff, and every time I learn something new in the next video, it's there. I'm using it. Like the last few videos, we've got a nice intro section now. Just sort of gives you an idea what we're all about. And I really like that. I kind of got the idea from like a Netflix documentary, how it's structured. So I'm really learning how to produce videos, not just content. But the Welsh Orbs one still, what it's giving me the message of still stands. It does compare video that was sent to us by a chap from Wales who was actually too afraid to go back to his home. It was a holiday home, but he was too worried about actually going into the property because of what his Blink video camera was capturing. So when I analysed that, and then compared that then to the charts of all the other orbs, the dust and the mites and the flies, and I got a really good match there on dust particles and how they're illuminated. The IR sensor will illuminate, this tiny speck of dust and make it look like a big, massive, solid object.
Right.
Translucent slightly, but still, give it that ghostly appearance. And again, looking at his layout of his front room, because I asked for a photograph of his living room just to show me what was there. There's a massive draft source from the fireplace. Oh. So every single object, he sent me 4 videos in all. I don't think I put all on the video, but they all come to the camera and they all fly up at the same time, at the same moment.
Oh, sure.
Because the draft is hitting the floor and coming up. So I was able to say to him, I've looked at it, it's dust, and here's why. And do you mind if I put a video together? And he was absolutely great with us. He's actually still a big fan of us. We see him at meetings. He's really, really supportive. And he's like, thank you so much. That I'm fine with it now. And he went back to his holiday home. And then I've done one recently called Lens Orbs. Camera lens orbs is my latest video. It's only about 3.5 minutes.
Yep.
Because again, the interaction from a strong light source to a tiny camera on your smartphone creates this lovely little dance of lights and orbs and things. And it's very obvious because when you move your phone, the object's moving too. It's in tandem. There's no mistaking it. But this person who sent me that was. I said, I can't mention names or anything, because I said I wouldn't do that, but they are very academic, which surprised me, very academic. And that person said, can you look at this? And when I gave the explanation, they were totally fine and on board with it. Said, they went, oh, you know what? I'm sorry I wasted your time. And I say this in police, when people call the police and, they think, oh, sorry, I didn't want to waste your time. You're never wasting our time.
Right.
You felt you needed to do that for answers, and now you've got that. So no one's wasted my time. Mm-hmm. So I'm really pleased with that sort of stuff. But I don't know what, Alison, you thought when you saw the videos at first before you joined SEPI, but what was your thoughts?
Oh, I think, it's really interesting because for me, it's one of the things that made me want to join even more, that there were people out there that had these experiences that they wanted explanations for, and I'm like probably both of you. I want things to be real, but I don't want to believe in something that can be disproved, because that just discounts your opinions and your views. When we find something that's real, I'll be singing from the rooftops and it will be fantastic. But I think it's important that things are investigated with due diligence and fairly, and people aren't also led down the garden path, because people become hooked in and go down rabbit holes with things. And I think it's important that they have that balance too. So when something real does come along, we can prove that. So that's a real pull for me with this. And I was going to say one of my favourite events that we've done was a CE5 event.
Okay.
Particularly the second day was fantastic. And I think although we didn't capture anything on camera that day, there were things that I saw during that experience. Dave, I don't know if you wanted to, because you started a CE5 event, didn't you, in the November, and I wasn't quite joined then, and we repeated that in the summer, didn't we?
Yeah, because some of our investigations are known as open investigations, very similar to how police would do long term if they're looking at serious crime. Mm-hmm. So for me, we've got an open investigation on the CE5 phenomena. We're trying to gather information and data. So the first one was held in October last year during the evenings. So it was dark, quite well popular spot near where I live, open to the public, at an old castle. So it had a bit of prestige about it as well. And it was very cold, but it was just me and my son at the time in SEPI, and we didn't have anybody else. Like Allison hadn't joined at that point. But we ran that day quite successfully. We had about 40 people attend that one, and we documented what we could. I made a video of that. You'll see that on our YouTube channel. It's got Stephen Greer's face on it because we used the C5 principles that Stephen Greer has devised back in the 90s. And the second one we wanted to do during the day this time, because looking at the C5 events across the world, it appeared that it doesn't matter what time of day it is. So again, for comparison for data, I deliberately wanted this to be on a nice summer's day in August, in the middle of a private land this time, that Allison managed to set up for us, because you knew the landowner, didn't you? Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was, on my first event, we had dog walkers just ruining it all for us. Oh. Just coming along, the dogs are barking, and then some guys going, "Oh, what's all this about?" And then we had some guys turn up with a spirit box looking for ghosts, making loads of noise. And I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. So the second event was on private land where we could gate it off and no one could just wander through. Mm-hmm. It did mean we had to charge £12 a head, which isn't a lot of money, because we had to pay landowners and insurance and bits more kit. And I think we were like in the minus figures of that one, weren't we, Allison, financially?
Yeah, we were. But I think that was such a powerful day. With having 30 people together, all meditating, and you'll see on the video, lots of them had different experiences during that day. It was the EMF meter that went off, didn't it? At about 4:35, wasn't it, in the afternoon? At the same time, correlated with someone feeling something behind them, and the camera I had on, which was definitely working, and I kid you not, and it didn't film it, but I witnessed that happening. And throughout the afternoon, I'd witnessed almost, I can only describe them as like there was someone in the sky just flashing a little mirror throughout the afternoon. there was no like feasible explanation for that, because David and I were there to facilitate the events and then observe what was happening during the event. So it was our investigation into what people would experience. So we didn't join in with the event, but we were constantly looking at the meters, looking through the cameras, looking in the sky to see if we could observe anything. So there were lots of different things that happened throughout the afternoon, but I'd say nothing really tangible on video, is there, David?
No, that was really disappointing. Like you said, when that EMF meter spiked from 0 to 55, no cameras recorded it. And I'm just flabbergasted by it. I mean, you know me, Alison, I'm very techie, aren't I? I'm a techie geek.
Yeah, you really are.
Yeah. And I had the cameras running, I was making sure they had power, but it didn't capture it. And but there's 28 witnesses to say that it did happen. And the EMF meter, just standard one. It's not a ghost one. There's no such thing as a ghost EMF meter. It's a standard device that measures any electromagnetic fields. And we'd already gone and done a recce, 2-3 weeks in advance, hadn't we, to visit the grounds?
Yeah, I think it was about a month in advance we went, didn't we? And we took loads of meter readings and we checked out the environment to check that it was suitable and did some risk assessments. And the readings were all flat, weren't they? There was nothing spiking at that time. Yeah.
There was the only power lines across about the end of the field, which are British Telecom communication lines. And even when I stood underneath one of the actual poles with the meter on, there was 0 EMF. Wow. Absolutely nothing. So to be in the middle of the field and for this suddenly go from 0 to 55, something was caught,
Right.
And the lights that Alison mentioned, they're known as flash bulbs, apparently, that phenomena. And we had quite a really well-seasoned and experienced C5 experiencer with us that day, didn't we, Alison?
Yes,
so he's been to many across the country, across the world, actually. So he was actually quite pleased with how it is run. We got him to do a bit of his meditation, CTS work, coherent thought sequencing it stands for. So we had like somebody there to make sure that we were following protocols as well. But yeah, so again, it's not closed. I've got no opinion on it still. Sure. I don't know if it's real or not real. I don't know yet. We're going to have to do more and collect more later. But that's what we're all about. We can't just do one event and go, well, we didn't see anything, so it's all rubbish. We can't do that. It's not.
Well, you did have experiences, though, right? Like the equipment failure. And that, to me, is profound. The whole battery drain thing or equipment failure around those electromagnetic events. And that's where it gets, I guess, for me, really hard to understand what it is we're dealing with, because is it a spiritual event? Is it an energetic event? Is it extraterrestrial? Is it extra dimensional? And obviously we don't have the tools or methodologies to really be able to distinguish a whole lot. In fact, it surprised me as I was doing the shows and as I was digging into these phenomena, how similar these different phenomena are in some of those telltale symptoms, I guess. So, Allison, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, during the day, David had battery packs. We had lots of battery packs, and like he said, he's very, very techie, and his batteries were draining all the time because we were trying to get witness statements as well, because obviously people's experiences there were, really important for us documenting the event. And we had lots of technical issues, didn't we, David? And battery drainage, and we were borrowing battery packs. And we've been really, really well prepared. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's in the unknown, environment where there's similar things, going on, whether it be, you're at a place where there's maybe somebody said there's a demonic entity and they're filming and it drains the battery, or we're trying to make contact with extraterrestrial beings and there's a drainage, of battery. There seems to be lots of things that correlate in these type of events, because it didn't surprise me. And I checked my camera because my camera had like a timer on it. It would film for 25 minutes. So after 25 minutes, I'd restart it, and I'd restarted it 10 minutes before that EMF meter went off, and it did not film it. And I absolutely 100% know I checked that because I was sitting right by the camera the whole time. So I think that in itself was perhaps part of the evidence that day of something different going on, because when we'd visited previously, we'd had all the cameras on, we checked all the readings, and no batteries had drained and nothing had happened. So was it what we'd created there that day with a group of people meditating at a certain frequency, and then we come to frequency and energy, and it's an endless tunnel of investigation, really. But sometimes there's just not enough tangible evidence.
Right.
So.
David, I was thinking about that whole battery drain thing too. And another phenomena that seems also to occur is, and I'm not sure that maybe battery drain is the right principle, because I think oftentimes we think, well, the spirits need the energy, so they're taking the battery energy and somehow converting that into energy for them to do things. But I'm thinking, and this is just spitballing an idea, but I'm curious what your thoughts are, is perhaps they're not actually utilizing that energy, but perhaps by their presence, they are disrupting the electromagnetic field in an area, and therefore the batteries can't function normally. Because I've experienced this myself in an investigation where my battery just went boom, and all of a sudden it was full, and then suddenly it was like blinking, like, oh, I'm in trouble, and I had to change cameras. But then when I left that area, I rechecked that camera, and it was full battery again. And so it seemed to me that maybe it's something like that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're on something there, because it did cross my mind that I think these cameras need to be protected by a Faraday cage. Something that's going to stop any incoming frequencies that's going to mess with it. And it does make me wonder if everything really should be caged off, which would just be called a logistical nightmare, because that means we've got more stuff to buy and to carry, and it'll be heavy. But I think to protect it, I think that's what's necessary. I think you're correct. I don't think it is draining and using the battery source like most people think spirits do, or EDEs, demons. But I think they are disrupting the frequency of it temporarily, and they come back again. That day, I was just in such panic mode to try and make sure everything was working. I just kept swapping batteries and power banks and everything, The power banks didn't drain, weirdly, but the batteries internally and cameras did. So it was just a constant catch-up. And I just had to learn again, I've got to have a power bank for every single device, because I had 2 power banks to service 4 different cameras, which I thought would be enough. But it really wasn't. Everything's got to have its own. And maybe, the Faraday cage idea is necessary going forward. So it needs more investment to do so. And I've spent a lot of money on the agency so far since last year to get kit, to get even the branding of the publishers we're wearing, and get our identity and our web presence, and our online reporting system called Storm. It's all been an investment, but I think a worthwhile investment, because as you alluded to quite early on, Brent, we're doing it for a reason, and it's because we want to push now forward as a civilization.
Yes.
I am actually quite frustrated and sick to death of being stuck in the same place,
right,
and not developing. And it's not for the want of trying from all of us. It's because we keep getting held back by maybe other nefarious outfits and organisations. They're doing it deliberately because they don't want us to progress. And I think now with an agency such as ours, we're the fight back, because we operate in the same space as maybe those organisations would do. We capture evidence in the same way that they would do. We're presenting it in the same method as they would do. Our statements are known as MG11 forms. That's what an police statement's called. Oh. It's an MG11 form. And the reason I'm mirroring the processes and procedures is not because I just want to be policey. It's so it can be accepted as real evidence to those types of organisations in the near future. Does that make sense? It kind of
Absolutely
try aligning with them so they can't. So to them, and excuse the pun, they don't just get a piece of it and go, well, that's a bit alien to us.
Yeah.
They would go, oh yeah, I know what MG11 is. You know, I know how the evidence is stored. I know how to deal with that. And they would feel more comfortable then and know that an agency's out there is actually bothered to take it seriously and capture it seriously.
Sure.
So that's the whole ethos for me is, number one, helping people. Mm-hmm. 2, developing our knowledge. And 3, developing us as a race. I think that's pretty much, you know, small goals.
Well, and I think this stuff is important. You know, I mean, for the longest time, all of this stuff has just been kind of the footnote of life. It's like, oh, that's where things just went sideways, or there's a glitch, or, you know, just weirdness happened. But I think, and I've said this for a long time, sorry for the redundancy if any of you out there are listening and like, oh, he's going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. And it is that I really think we're being shown something extraordinary here. And these are the breadcrumbs that may teach us about new forms of energy that we're not able to measure and maybe even ascertain any direct knowledge of, or even the nature of reality that we live in, because we're conditioned to experience it as this rigid construct. But maybe it's fluid and dynamic, and this stuff is showing us that the rules that we've assigned to it don't necessarily always apply. And that's not a glitch. That's not a failing. That's showing us that we have a lot more to learn, you know?
Yeah, I just think it's time. It's time now. You know, we've watched the silly UFO programs in the past and the silly films and all that stuff. Hollywood's been preparing us for, you know, contacts really for many, many years. The agenda's goes way back. I think something should happen about 30, 40 years ago, and it didn't. I think we're now getting to the point at this moment in time in our lifetimes that we're starting to see a shift. Mm-hmm. And they are starting to, and excuse the language, but they are starting to issue the bullshit burgers. Okay, so that means you got 2 lies with a truth sandwiched in the middle. Mm-hmm. They're releasing those as videos or as a new book, or the next celebrity who says, I'm interested in UFOs, and suddenly gets a massive following. I've done 0 work. I'm not going to name any names, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
We're at that phase, and the SEPI agency have placed themselves in a prime position to assist government bodies, if necessary, in the movement into disclosure properly. Mm-hmm. So they want to, you know, they think they can do it themselves. They keep using social analysts and all these clever people. Clever people are not born with common sense. Right. Sorry, they're not. Okay, true. We need grounded people to help government agencies say, we can help with this. This is how the public would like to have it presented.
Yeah,
you know. And if you've been naughty in the past, then maybe as a trade-off, you say we did it, but also on the other hand, but not our fault. Really sorry, but here's the truth now. And then we're going to have to learn to forgive. We're going to have to get over that hurdle. We're going to have to forgive these people that have suppressed us for many years.
Sure.
And go, okay, it wasn't great, but we're happy with what the future can bring.
Right.
I think that's really important.
Moving forward. Yep, absolutely. And we can't do that unless we come to some kind of unity in that philosophy. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you guys here, and I hope this is the beginning of a long-term relationship with you guys coming on and sharing some of your insights and some of what you're doing with us, because it's been a fantastic journey.
Yeah, I mean, we hope we can bring the other subjects. Like Alison's going to be doing a lot of work on the Bigfoot phenomenon in the UK. So she'll be leading on that one. We've got hypotheses to look at, like the traumatic time impressions hypotheses, our EDE, extra-dimensional entities hypotheses that we're investigating. So we've got loads of stuff to bring in the future. So we'll never not have anything to talk about, Brent.
Well, you're always welcome here, brother, both of you and anyone else you want to bring along. It'd be an absolute pleasure to have you guys back. But thank you both for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you, too. It's been great.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. It's online. Can you take a couple minutes and let people know where to find what you're doing and how to contact you?
Yeah, sure. So on YouTube, if you go to @SEPI Agency, so SEPI, SEPI Agency, you'll find our channel. Or you can go to www.sepi-agency.com. That'll take you to our main webpage where you can report an incident to us and contact us directly. All the videos also linked on our homepage there as well. We are all on the main socials as well. So on Instagram, again, @SEPI Agency, and TikTok, begrudgingly, but I've done it. But we're on TikTok as well. And obviously, we also do have a Facebook private group called the SEPI Agency. If you want to look that up and send a request in, we're happy to let you join.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Allison. It's been a pleasure meeting you as well.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you. And like David said, we've got loads more things, particularly for me, looking at the Bigfoot.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Because it's not so discussed in the UK as it is in America.
I know. Yeah, I know. There's actually, I was working with the Irish Bigfoot Research Organization, the IBRO, and I did some narration for their documentaries on the last two of them. But I'm a firm believer that you guys definitely have some kind of Bigfoot or hominid over there. Whether it's Woodwose or Grolgok or Gray Man or any other name that that's floating around out there. But yeah, I mean, it's a tale that is global. So yeah, I'll look forward to that. We'll have a great discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, you guys, thanks again. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. You all take care, and remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.